Hello everyone, welcome back. Spring 2014. What you see here in front of you is the Sangu kaku. It's the one that we did the thread grafts for our primary branches. Cut back the top for a new apex, which, because of course it's raining, is right here. And I have not fertilized these trees. They have just gone overboard with growth in a really short amount of time. I think it's because we had a pretty wet winter. But of course, as you can see, this thing's already way out of control. And it leafed out about 2 weeks ago. So when we have trees that we're utilizing for starting to create ramification, we need to keep this type of growth in check. Now I let it get exaggerated and a little bit out of hand so I can show you what can happen. But what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on getting all this back in to where it needs to be, and we're going to cut all this back, with the exception of the apex, to one set of leaves. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll do a quick curl 360 so you can see the whole thing. I remember somebody made a comment about the tree not having any back branches. There was plenty of buds, and I knew that they were going to come out and go nuts. So we've got more back branches than we know what to do with at the moment. First place I want to start on this tree is going to be the base. This tree, for whatever reason, loves putting in out back buds and loves putting tons of them down at the base where the cut sites are. I don't need to get a whole ton of them branches down there around those cut sites now, because I'm going to let the apex grow freely. We're going to have a lot of energy coming through this tree, which is going to close those wound sites up. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the unnecessary branches down low around these cut sites, because we don't need them. And if you let them grow, they're just going to turn into bulges that are going to be unsightly later on down the road. So we'll just pinch off the real small ones that we don't need. If there's any other dormant buds down here that we're not after, we'll go ahead and rub those off at the same time and just eliminate all this now, before it potentially becomes a eyesore later. Okay, we got some other stuff down here. Don't keep anything lower than that. Let's look at it. No. Alright, sorry about that, guys. The battery went dead on my camera, so I had to recharge it last night, and we're back at it this morning. I had a branch up here in this area of the tree that was fairly large for its size. Right here it is, actually. And it had a really bad wiring scar. And I let it grow there just, I guess, to strengthen up that area. I always knew that I was going to need to replace it with something. And I've actually got 3 buds right where that same branch came out. So I'm going to, hopefully one of those will pop and give me another branch that I need. You want to constantly be thinking about, what am I going to do to replace this branch when it gets too large in this area? Of course, we always want to go with the mindset of the thickest branches are at the bottom, and then they get smaller as they go up to the top. So let's continue on trimming this tree. Now, back to what I just said, you want the largest, thickest branches at the bottom. All of this right here that you see was that thread grafted branch. So all these leaves right here are that thread grafted branch. We're not going to touch any of this. I want this thing to just have free reign to grow. Same thing goes with the one on this side as well. All this lower stuff that's part of this branch, I want this branch to just be able to grow freely and thicken up just as much as I can get it to. So what we're going to focus on is keeping everything but those 2 branches in the very top of the tree in check. Now, I am going to need to strategically think about some things while I'm doing this. I want this bottom branch to just grow up massively, I need to look at a future design at the same time. So I'm always looking to see what I can cut back to eventually, and I have, I believe, 2 branches here that I can cut back to eventually, so that's going to be good for that. I have a branch here that doesn't need to be here at all. It just showed up and it was at the very front. It's kind of an eyesore, eye poker type of branch. This is the other bottom branch here. Now up above that one, there is another branch that I am going to be keeping on this tree for the long haul. Possibly. I got a smaller branch right below it. Looks like it's getting ready to try to pop out that we're going to leave there just to see what happens. If it decides that it's going to come out, we may replace that one as well. But for now we'll keep it. So I need to think about this upper part of the tree and what I need and what I don't need and what I'm going to keep and what I'm not going to keep, and eliminate what I'm not going to keep, which is going to be a good majority of what you see up here right now. Got some branches here that are growing in the wrong location altogether. Let's get rid of all that. I'll keep this one, I'll keep that one. Don't need this one. Let's get rid of this one and keep that one. So I'm just going to be going around this tree here and figuring out which buds. I mean, we had, like I said, tons and tons of buds that popped on this tree, so I just got to kind of be mindful of where they came out at and whether or not I'm going to keep them, and eliminate the ones that I'm not. And even the ones that I am going to keep, I need to trim them back to keep them small. So I'm actually, believe it or not, going to trim back to 2 sets of leaves. It's going to do 2 things for me. It's going to stop the rapid growth, and at the same time, it's also going to make these branches want to back bud. And that's going to give me more ramification. Another thing it's going to do is allow light into these lower branches below here. So at that same time, it's going to provide the light necessary for these lower branches to get more energy to extend. Alright, I've got way too many branches back here in the back that have popped from the same location. Because this is lower on the tree, I want to select the strongest branch that will become a back branch for me and eliminate the rest, because if not, I'm going to have an unsightly bulge back here in this area. So that's what I'm doing now, is just seeing if I can find, I have an idea of which one I want to keep. I think I'm going to keep this dude right here. And I think I'm going to keep this one here, or maybe this one here. Let's see. This one's going to be too close to my other branches, so I'm going to eliminate that one. And I'm going to eliminate that one. This branch here is growing straight up. I'm going to keep branches that are growing straight up. And again, as a consequence, these branches that are really long, that are above branches below it that I want to keep, I want to kind of encourage these lower branches to get light so they can grow and extend, because they need to be thicker than the ones above them. So we have to keep these in check. And in order to do that, we need to go ahead and cut these back so they allow the necessary opportunity for the lower branches to get light. Now this tree eventually will have smaller leaves on it than what you currently see. It's fairly new And what I mean by new is it's only been in this pot for 2 to 3 years. And this is a really large pot. And we do that intentionally because of course we want it to develop lots of ramification. So you're going to have these large leaves in here because there's a lot of root development happening. Gotta be careful here that I'm not chopping leaves off the bottom one, because we need that one to extend and go crazy. We got here, this one. This is important to do real early in the spring, like we have now, because you're wanting to focus the energy of the tree on being able to put massive amounts of energy on branches that you're wanting to extend. By cutting these back in strategic areas, that's going to force more energy to the other branches that have more leaves, because they're generating more energy and more sugars and everything that the tree needs to live. So it's going to automatically want to put more effort into those growing branches than the ones that are cut back that just have a few. So that's why we're going through here and doing what we're doing now, to kind of let the tree know, hey, these are the ones you need to focus on, and as a consequence those will thicken up faster. Of course, at the same time, we also want to eliminate any upward growing branches, because of course upward growing branches are not going to be good for the final design of the tree. What do I want to do up here? That's right in the front. That's okay, because it's going to be kind of in a way hiding. See what we got going on here. We got lots and lots of stuff in the front here that's really not necessary. I'll leave that on just in case. I can always use that. I think these buds here are going to pop now that they're going to get some viable light. We want to extend, I hope. This is all just a game of keep in check. Now, because there's such an amount of leaf on this apex, and we want this apex to grow and extend and just go crazy, I'm going to actually wire it up. And I'm going to use a fairly thick wire. Now I don't obviously want it to be too thick, but I don't want it to be too thin either, because hopefully when this thing decides to take off and put some energy into apical growth, it's going to thicken up pretty quick, and I want to make sure that I don't allow the wire to cut in on it. So I think a thicker wire is going to help me out in accomplishing that task. It'll take a little bit longer for this tree to dig into a thick wire than it will a thin wire. And I'm not going to try to wire it real tight. If I used a smaller wire, I'd have to wire it very tight. And as a consequence, of course, it would cause the growing apex to dig in to the bark faster, which is what we're trying to avoid. So we're going to give it a little bit of assistance in helping it stay upward, because that's what we want it to do, is grow upward and get as thick as it can in a short time frame. That'll help with wind. That'll also help keep it stationary till it gets thick enough and strong enough that it can hold up this massive leaf on top, the massive amount of leaves on top. Like I said, this thing just exploded with growth, and it did it so fast that the tree kind of is trying to play catch up now with what it's done. So let's go here and just verify everything along that you see here on this bottom part is the thread graft on this side. Everything along on that part is thread graft on that side. Now that I've got the apex out of the way, I can worry about and focus on continuing to cut this stuff back up above here. Some of it may need to be cut way back. Some of it even may need to be eliminated altogether. Just depends on where it's currently located. Design of the tree. It's just going to get rid of it altogether. Okay. This here can also be used. So we're going to cut it back to here. Okay, so this is what we're after. What we're doing is working on creating ramification in the uppermost part of the tree, at the same time allowing the apex to grow freely and unchecked. And at the same token, the two lowest branches right now really need to thicken up, so we're going to allow them just to go crazy so they can do that. Next year, if they're the proper size next year, then we'll worry about removing them at that point in time. But we're keeping what we don't want to get large in check by constantly keeping it trimmed back and keeping it compacted. And what that'll do is it'll build a dense canopy up top. And we're not building a canopy to the point where we can't allow light in. This here in the back, I want it to thicken up and I want it to grow. So what I've done is this bottom back branch, I'm going to allow it to grow freely so it can thicken up a little bit and get out to about right here. The back branches that are above that area are larger than the lower one, so we've cut them back so we can keep them in check and start developing ramification on them as well. I've got a back branch up here at the top that shot out of nowhere, and it's fairly thick as well. So I need to keep it in check and develop ramification up through here. So we've cut that back also. So that is what we're after this season so far. Last year this thing flowered. This year it did not. I don't know if that has any significance in anything or it doesn't, but last year it did bloom. This year it did not. Just want to make sure I keep as much of that moss in check at the base so it doesn't start growing up the trunk. So that's what we have. Let's look at it from the front real quick here. Of course we have number 1 branch here, number 2 branch here, back branch just above it, number 3 branch I guess you could call it, and then where number 4 branch was, I cut it off because it was just way too large and it had some wire scarring. because I've left this area nice and open, like I said, there are some dormant buds down in here. And I'm anticipating one of them going ahead and popping, and I'll let it grow out till it gets to about that long, and then I'll cut it back, and then it'll start ramifying. And if not, I have this branch right here that I could always bring over into the position of where that branch is going to be, which would be right there. So we'll do a quick 360, stick this bad boy back out on the bench, and we'll let it have its fun for the season. I wanted to also point out, and I'll zoom into these so you can see them. Let me go ahead and do that now. By the way, I love this new camera that I have, this full HD camera. It's a really nice camera. I'm satisfied with it. I get way better quality videos, and the lighting's not so much of an issue as well, which I'm kind of happy with. Here we go. Just wanted to show you the kind of healing that we've gotten in the last 2 growing seasons. The cut on this was actually out to here and back to here. So we've gotten about a ½ inch of healing here on this. And this is the largest wound on the tree, but it is continuing to heal, which is a good thing. And I'm getting a ton of back budding down here that I got to constantly take off the tree, because if not, you get these ugly knob looking things, and thank goodness these are in the rear of the tree, or else we'd have to cut them off and try to get that healing process going on with those as well. Let me go ahead and turn it over here just to show the apically dominant portion of this tree. The higher up the tree you are, the more healing you're going to get. And what will happen is those will all get healed up and be done, and then the bottom ones will start healing even more because they're the only ones left. But this one's got a decent amount. I'm hoping between this year and next year that'll be completely healed over. Moving up the tree to here. This one did tremendously well, and you can see it's quite a bit higher than this one is, so it's gotten almost 3/4 of an inch all the way around worth of healing. And let's see, moving on up to here, I think you can see this one as well. I don't think you can. Let me zoom out to it. Alright, this one here, again, even higher up than the other one, and it's gotten phenomenal healing as well. So I anticipate all the large, and then this one here where I cut the branch off, I think you can see that one as well. It's completely healed because I had a sacrifice branch there growing. So those are all the major cuts on this tree, and they're all healing very, very well. So we should not have an issue with getting those wound sites closed up. We just need to continue doing what we're doing on the tree and allow it to do what it's naturally meant to do. Zoom back out here for you. So there she is for this season. Now, of course, later on in the season, if this thing does start getting too thick on these bottom branches, at that point in time, all we need to do is just cut them back like the rest of it, and that'll, of course, make it want to do a second bud back and start the ramification process on that portion of the tree as well. Not necessary at the moment because, of course, like I said, we're trying to develop thicker branches. Also, I need to get some wiring done on this tree. I need to have some of the branches, instead of being on a plane like this, I've got them at a plane like this, and it almost looks like some of those branches. But instead of bringing them flat, I'm not going to necessarily bring them flat, but I don't want them at an angle like this either. I want them rather maybe at like a 22-degree angle versus a 45-degree angle, because I still want the look of the tree. Eventually it's going to be a rounded canopied tree. So some of these branches need to be growing upwards at angles, but other ones as well need to be filling out what's underneath it. So we're creating layers of branches on the tree. So that's it for this one. We'll visit it again maybe midsummer, and that is that. Don't know that I necessarily even need to put any fertilizer in these trees this year. I did fertilize them fairly heavy the first year I put them in here, And the kind of fertilizer I used was a product called Osmocote, and another was ironite. Now ironite is just cleated iron. It helps with making the leaves a darker green versus a lighter green or almost a yellowish color. And the darker green the leaf, the more chlorophyll is in it. The more chlorophyll is in it, the more productive it is. So I threw that in there, and then like I said, I threw this Osmocote, and there's another product out there. I've got a bag of this stuff over here. You have to be in nursery to buy this stuff. I can't remember the name of it. I can't read the bag right now, but you got to be a professional nursery to get it. And the friend that I use, or my friend up in North Carolina, John Green, Green Thumb Bonsai, is a certified nursery, so he is able to get this stuff. It's very expensive though. It's like $125 for a 40-pound bag of it, but it does work miracles. I mean, that's 2 years in here, never fertilized, other than every once in a while I hit it with like a liquid Miracle Grow. But mainly I rely on that time-released fertilizer in there, because there's sometimes when I can't get out here to water and fertilize my trees like I'd like to, and that allows it to continue to have a food process. You know, I have an automatic watering system that sprays them from overhead, and then the water obviously drips down into the tubs that they're in and takes care of them from there. So, Sangu kaku, 2014 spring. Thanks for watching.